Hello, everybody. I'll give you all a second to connect in. First of all, I just wanted to start by saying thank you for being here and joining Catherine and Kim for this incredible conversation about top 5 leadership attributes. We're so happy that you're here. My name is Sherilyn. I work alongside Catherine Bell. And I'm just going to take a moment to introduce you guys to the 2 incredible people that I'm going to pin to the screen and spotlight for everybody. All right, so starting it off, Kim G C Moody is an influential leader in the taxation profession. He combines a passion for teaching, leadership, and integrity in his work. As the founder of Moodys Private Client and Moodys Tax, his expertise extends almost 30 years, and he has held virtually every leadership position there is in the tax profession in Canada. It's incredible. Kim's commitment to ethical leadership and transparent communication has established him as a respected figure in Canada's tax profession. He is known for his insightful presentations and dedication to mentoring future leaders, consistently contributing to the evolving tax landscape. So everybody, welcome Kim. And Catherine Bell is the dynamic CEO and founder of the Awakened Company. She is a renowned author with so many upcoming books and serial entrepreneur. She's trained in leadership by one of the top 10 researchers in the world. She co-founded a Profit 20 company that was awarded Best Workplace. She's a Woman of Inspiration finalist. She has an MBA, sociology degree, yoga certification, and expertise in the Enneagram. She skillfully merges business acumen with wisdom traditions. Outside of work, Catherine is a mother, a wife, an avid volunteer. She's founder of the Awaken Project, which is a I've lost my train of thought here, which is a donation-based company or charity organization that directly helps women entrepreneurs in our community. Outside of that, she's somewhat clumsy. She enjoys windsurfing and tennis. And her vision with the Awakened Company is to ignite and sustain the fire within through passion, purpose, and playfulness. And the Awakened Company merges wisdom traditions, practical know-how, and business research to help organizations create alchemy. Both of these people are clearly very successful. That is quite a mouthful for both of them. So I'm going to pass it on over to them so they can start discussing everything about the top 5 leadership attributes.
Awesome. Well, this is going to be fun. So thanks, Catherine, for this opportunity. And how the hell did we come up with this idea, by the way? What are we doing here today?
Well, today we are going to be going through our top 5 leadership tips for you. So hopefully we want you to walk away with some ahas. And Kim and I, we've worked together for on and off, what, 20 years?
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years. So we thought it was high time that we do something together that would be an inspiration for you. So without further ado, thank you all for being here. Thank you, just taking in and appreciating that you've chosen to spend your precious time with us. And we hope that you have some real ahas with what we're doing today. So we should start with the top 5. What do you think, Kim?
Yeah, why don't we go back and forth? So where this came from was, yeah, you were talking offline. I was asked to do a presentation on leadership recently on my top 5 leadership lessons learned during my career. And I thought, that's a hell of a good topic. I like that. And it took a while for me to actually think about it because I've learned a lot over the years, failed on lots of things, which really is how lessons happen, right?
Yes.
So I developed this list of 5, and I know you've got a list of 5. So why don't I go with, I'll start with my number 5 here.
Perfect.
We'll do a Letterman style countdown, right? Wonder how many people remember David Letterman top 5. Probably not many. Well, I know Gary real. There was a little old, like me, so he remembers, right, Gary? I got him to laugh and listen. That's good. All right, number 5, what I learned over the years. Superior technical skills and a title doesn't make you a leader. And so, you know, and I see that in the professions out there quite a bit, in accounting, law, especially medicine. You know, if all of a sudden you come out, you're a doctor.
Yeah.
Apparently you're smart. Well, there's no question you're smart. The issue though is, are you a leader? And just because you have a title, like a partner in a law firm, partner in an accounting firm, or you're a sole practitioner in an accounting firm, I can buy smart. And frankly, over the years, I've bought lots of smart people. And how do I do that? Well, I just hire them.
Yeah.
You know, but that doesn't make those smart people, or me for that matter, a good leader. And so leadership, in my view, is much more than a title and a position. And I think, I'll repeat myself, especially to professionals who are trained, that, you know, it's instilled in them that once they get their title, they're God. You know, and this God complex, I think, is a dangerous thing, because you're not God. You might be smart, but that's about it. But I can buy smart. And so that, I think, took a while for me to learn, especially me, because I like to think I'm rather intelligent, at least I hope I am. But I learned quickly that just because I'm smart doesn't make me a leader. So that was, and I got more to say on that later, but that was my thoughts on that.
Kim, I think that's really, really wise, and I'd invite everybody to please chime in on the chat if you want to comment or have any observations based on what Kim just said. So Kim, I totally agree. Most people, they're promoted with technical skills, but they haven't actually been taught how to lead. And here's the magic though. The magic is that everybody can learn leadership skills.
Yeah,
that's the magic.
You're not born a leader. I hate this whole thing of you're either a leader or you're not. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? You can learn leadership skills.
Okay, so now here's where it's going to get juicy, because we're going to have some very different perspectives here.
Good.
And Kim and I have, as I said, I've worked for Kim, let's be blunt. I worked for Kim for over 20 years. And we have different perspectives, and that's what makes our relationship so interesting. So I want to talk about my number 5.
All right.
And my number 5 in terms of leadership is, I'm going to lean on the research of Dr. Julian Barley, who's one of the top researchers in the world. And what he did, but what the research study did, is they separated 2 groups of people into 2 different boardrooms. The first boardroom, people were told, you are leaders. The second boardroom, people were told, you are followers. So you have one boardroom where people are being told they're leaders, another boardroom where people have been told they're followers. Then they looked at the behavior of the people in the 2 different boardrooms. And super fascinating. Those that were told they were followers, when an emergency situation, a hypothetical, it wasn't real, it was under research studies, research guidelines, or an emergency situation emerged, the people who were told they were followers did nothing. Whereas those who were told they were leaders, they activated their leadership. So my number 5, and I've gone totally old school here, because part of our values is fun. So I've made a little handout, which is number 5, which is believe.
Nobody can read
Like
that.
believe you are, I know no one can probably read it at this point, but number 5 is believe you are a leader. And to Kim's point, the most highly effective leaders are the most self-aware leaders. So you also need to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And you need to listen both to your internal wisdom and to your external guidance. So number 5 for me is believe. And with so many people, I can't tell you how many people suffer from, and this men and women and everything in between, suffer from imposter syndrome. What we need to have some kind of belief that we can lead.
Yeah, let me tell you a story on that, because I think you and I are saying very similar things here. So when I started my practice in 1994,
Yeah.
so God, that's coming up 30 years next year.
Woo-woo. Amazing.
I again thought, wow, you know, I'm smart.
Mhm.
and I like tax, so I'm gonna start a tax practice, and then I quickly realized, holy cow, I don't know much about tax. I gotta learn a lot of this stuff. And then secondly, as I bumped along, I didn't really know what I was supposed to do every day when I showed up. And when I started hiring people because I needed help, it was like, what am I supposed to do with these people? Because I had no training in terms of leadership. So I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was asking me, this is 3 years into my practice, so about late 1997. And he said, how's the practice? I said, it's going fine. I'm making money, which is fine. But honest to God, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what am I building here?
Yeah.
And then how am I supposed to lead?
Mm.
So, and because I've got these employees now, and so anyhow, he says, well, have you ever thought of peer-to-peer learning?
Yeah.
And I think you know, probably chat with that later. So he introduced me to a group, and there's no shortage of peer-to-peer learning groups out there. But he introduced me to a group called Strategic Coach,
Mhm.
and it was damn expensive for me back then. It was $5,000, which was a lot of money. But I took the plunge and thought, okay, I'm gonna go and learn how to be an entrepreneur.
Mm.
Best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely best thing, because I showed up, and 4 times a year I met with the same group. There was an agenda, and it was literally learning how to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And how to, learning tools on how to be an entrepreneur, how to be a leader,
Yes.
because people aren't taught how to be a leader, right?
Mm.
So to your point on this study, yes, a good chunk is believe in having that mindset you're a leader. And I thought I was, especially with the designation, but what do you do after that?
Keep learning, Kim,
Keep learning.
as you said, so that weaves into my number 4.
Okay, you go.
And by the way, this is unrehearsed.
Of
Kim
course.
and I did not get together and say, what are our top 5s, etc. So my number 4 is inspiring. And let me tell you why I think this is so important. It is so important because I've made so many mistakes around it. So very specifically, imagine this. I'm around the boardroom with when I'm a serial entrepreneur with an incredible team. And I'm like, okay, team, here's our vision. And I kind of rammed it down the team's throat. I'm like, here's what we're gonna do. Rah, rah, team, go, go, team. And I thought I was being super inspiring. Okay, so we leave that strategy session. I'm feeling very, very good about it. And I'm like, oh, this team's amazing. We brought in somebody from Denmark to work with us because there was nobody in Canada doing what we were doing. And the first question the facilitator asked is, what is your vision? And I just thought, I got all kind of proud and kind of boastful inside. I'm like, oh, the team just has this. They just have it nailed. Well, nobody raised their hands. That night, I cried myself to sleep, and I thought about what a terrible leader I was, because I came to realize in that moment, I didn't inspire people, and that one of Margaret Wheatley's principles is people support what they create. So I actually needed to help build in the whole team into the process of creating vision rather than dictating what the vision was. So my number 4, and then from there on, no one ever forgot the vision because we created one together, and then we reinforced it together. And that's the other thing about vision and values. You need to reinforce, reinforce, reinforce. So my number 4 is inspiring, and the action, everything. I'm all about what is the smallest thing we can do. And the action is, I believe every leader needs to have a clear team vision that everybody is into and can articulate. The majority of teams that I work with, or we work with, when I ask the leaders what the vision is, typically it's me over here, me. No one really knows. So that's where we begin. And I know because I've made so many mistakes.
So one thing I took away from your number 4 was that, yeah, I agree that you have to be inspirational. Like, people have to want to follow. Sorry, people, in order to be an effective leader, mind you, people have to want to follow you.
Yes.
Right. But I think certainly I made the similar mistake back then, is that, hey, as long as I come up with the vision, I come up with the ideas,
Yes.
people are gonna wanna follow.
Yeah, no,
No.
no.
You gotta evolve.
Yes,
And you can
yes.
still be inspirational, you have to be inspirational,
yes.
but it has to be, it can't be a one-way street. So I think that's really good. You want my number 4?
Yeah, what's your number 4?
So I did a video on this earlier this year, a couple months ago. And my number 4 is being likable as a leader is not the objective.
Ooh, tell me more about that one.
So I did a video, and it's on my personal website. Do you need to be likable to be a good leader? So let me ask you that, because you obviously didn't watch the video. So what, do you think you need to be likable? Keyword is need. Do you need to be likable to be a good leader? And actually, in the chat, if people are
I
awake.
think, wait a minute, people are responding, Kim, let's see what they're saying. There's
So let's see.
loud engagement.
Do you need to be likable to be a good leader? Yes or no? And while we're waiting for some responses here, which we're not getting many, what's your response? Oh, we got a few no's. We got no.
No.
Yes.
The answer
So-
is no, you do not need to be likable
So
to be a good leader. In fact, making tough choices, if they're the right choices, yes, respected, not liked.
yeah,
Yeah, I like that.
yeah.
Like that, Mark.
So here's kind of my conclusion is no as well. But
Why?
but I think, as I said in my presentation a couple months ago in my video, obviously being likable is helpful. And if you're likable, people are going to be more apt to want to follow. No question about it. But is being likable the objective of being a good leader? No, for the reasons that you said. And this is my opinion, okay? Is day-to-day leaders have to make hundreds of decisions. Most of them are right, thankfully. Some of them, though, can have devastating consequences. Like during COVID and during some tragedies that we've had in the firm over the years, you know, I was forced to make some decisions like on a dime.
Yes.
And you need to be able to have that experience to think about well-rounded, what's the best decision? Given the fact that all decisions, no matter what you choose, are going to be bad. What's the best? And if likability is at the top of the agenda, that doesn't mean that you're going to pick the right choice. So let me give you a quick story on this, and then we'll go on to number 3, or maybe get some more. I like this. No one's about purpose and vision. I agree with that.
And have some credibility. I like that too.
So here's the story.
Yeah.
So I was mentoring one of my former colleagues, no longer with us, and this particular colleague, he was so likable, just a really kind person, really good person, and smart. And so we ended up promoting this person to be a leader in a particular facet of our firm, and ultimately did a not bad job, but all of a sudden there was a ceiling, right? And couldn't push through. And the reason why is because this particular person at the top of the agenda was being likable. And that was the sole motivation of being the leader was, well, Kim, if I make that decision, I'm not going to be liked. I'm going to be not respected anymore. No, Mr. X, you know, you as a leader need to learn how to make the tough decisions. And in some cases, it's very, very lonely at the top. And frankly, being a leader, I think it is lonely at the top in many cases. And that's why I think we have, you know, a mental health crisis going on with respect to leadership. You know, it's very lonely. And so my conclusion is likable is helpful. Who doesn't like a good person?
Right.
But is it the objective of being a good leader? Absolutely not. And unfortunately, you know, when I was doing this video, I thought, oh, how many articles there are out there on this topic. Just, you know, type in Mr. Google. Oh my God, there is a ton of articles on likability and leadership. And there's, I would say probably half of them say that, yeah, in order to be a good leader, you need to be likable. I call bullshit on that. So anyway, there's my little lesson number 4.
Yeah, that's a powerful lesson, and I think it is. Our connection to other people is very, very, very important. So what Kim said in terms of leadership, Kim runs a McKay CEO forum group, and it's all about CEOs coming together and sharing, and entrepreneurs supporting each other, which is really, really amazing.
Yeah.
And on that whole likability thing too, I think it's very important for me. I like to be liked, and for me, it's more important to be deep than liked. And what do I mean by deep than liked? It means that when we work with our clients, whoever we choose to work with, there has to be an alignment of values. And the Awakened Company, when it was first published, in 2015, the book, way ahead of its time, but to me, it was in alignment with how do you in organizations, they aren't separate from our external environment, and that we really need to take good care of our organizations, our people.
No question.
Yeah, great question. I love this.
How are you defining being liked? We have Anna ask.
Yeah, great question.
For me, the definition of that is just, when you come to work, do you enjoy your leader? Do you want to go, like, would that person be a person you want to go have coffee with, or invite them over for dinner? And to me, it's as simple as that. This particular person that I tried to mentor can ultimately end up failing because the person is no longer with us and is not a good leader, and will struggle with being a good leader because that was the sole objective of that person, right?
Yes.
Because that person coming to work wanted to be able to be friends, go for dinner, go for coffee, and still be liked.
Yes.
That's what I mean by in response to Anna's question.
Well, and Anna, how I would define it is being liked as being nice, whereas for me, it's really important to be kind, which isn't nice, which isn't always nice.
I think I'll debate you on that.
Like, okay, we love debate, so let's debate.
So I think leaders, yes, a core objective is kind, but I would call it more empathetic. Right? Leaders need to be able to feel the consequences of their actions.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes it may not be kind. You're right.
I would argue that
kind delivery.
A kind delivery.
But maybe not a kind consequence or a kind result.
Well, I think letting go of somebody who's not a fit for your organization is kind.
But
it's not nice.
But they might feel that.
Yeah, but
and they may disagree with you.
Yeah, that's true. However, I think that's the kind thing to do, maybe not the nice thing to do. And Yama, I love this. Leadership must also consider the cultural aspects of our people.
No question.
We are gonna get into that. So should we talk about number 3? Do you want to leave number 3?
Number 3.
Yes.
All right. So I learned this from my senior coach days. It was one of the first things they taught me. They called it the 3 golden rules. And it just resonated so much with me. And I'll test you on this in a second. So leaders need to practice, and frankly, I think it's beyond just leaders, but especially leaders need to practice the so-called 3 golden rules. Do what you say is number 1. Number 2, show up on time. So it's 2 parts. Show up. So you and I are showing up today. Are we on our phones? No, because we're showing up.
Yeah.
When you're on your phone in a meeting, you're not showing up.
It's true.
Or when you're multitasking on Zoom, that's not showing up.
That's true.
That's one of the reasons why I hate Zooms, because people don't pay attention.
Yeah.
Even though I thank you all for joining us today.
Yeah.
So that's number 2, show up on time. And number 3, say please and thank you. So number 1, do what you say. Number 2, show up on time. And number 3, say please and thank you. So what's the one word that would encompass those 3 golden rules? I'm putting you on the spot. Starts with an R. Anybody?
I don't know what it is. Respect.
Hey, bingo.
RESPECT. Find out what it means to me.
Okay.
I love
it. So respect, right? How many of you, and thanks really, and I'm glad one person is paying attention. That's awesome. So what have you ever read the book, which I know some of us have, but I'd like to know, from the audience who's read it, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yes, of course.
Classic book, right?
Yes. Getting lots of yeses.
Good. That's awesome, because to me, that's what this three golden rules stands for, right?
Mhm.
And that's what Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People is respect. And the
Yeah.
other word out of that book is listen.
Which
So,
was action number 5.
okay, there you go. Respect and listen.
Yeah.
So that's my number 3.
So I want to call Yama in. Yama, are you able to come on off mute?
Hi, yes, I can. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I really honor what you were saying about cultural context in the chat, and I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about your perspective on that, because it relates into my number 3. It's like you had clairvoyance in terms of what I was going to say. So tell me more. If you could tell me more about what you wrote in the chat, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. No, I just wanted to emphasize because nowadays we are working with a team, and different cultures, they have different preferences for leadership styles. It's not that it's just one size fits all. There is egalitarian culture that is preferred by some cultures, and then hierarchical by some others, and different people are used to different leadership approach. So that's what I wanted to highlight, because the way we communicate, again, considering that there is low context, high context cultures, again, it's the responsibility of the leaders to understand who is in the team, right? Do we have a mix of people from low context, high context? Can my communication be understood? And that's one aspect of the communication, and I believe that's extremely important. Decision making, right? A consensus based or top down.
Mhm.
Those are all really good
Yeah.
points.
Really
So,
good points. Wait, Kim.
what's number 3?
Number 3 is individualized consideration.
Oh, come on.
And this is based, so it's like he foresaw, so I just want to honor what you said. I completely agree. And I want to tell you a little story. I was at a big event, and there were 3 university presidents who talked about what were the most powerful things they did in their careers. And this really, really, really struck me. That one of the university presidents said, every night at the end of the day, I write 5 thank you notes to individuals with the specific reasons why they added value to our organization and why they were important. And I think this is a real missing piece in organizations. So I think we need to really think about what it says here. Smallest thing you can do to recognize someone else, and also to adapt to that cultural focus that Yama was speaking about. And thank you for being brave and courageous enough to come and speak your truth to us. So what do you think about that, Kim?
You know, I think it's great. I think you got to be careful by being too individualized, especially as the group of people that you lead grows in numbers. And I struggled with this, right? As I think I was a really good leader of 10 people, 20 people, 30 people. But as I got to the 40 and 50 and 60 and 70 people that, you know, in my firm, it was more of a struggle for me. Mainly because I didn't know everybody. And so how do I apply that individualized consideration that you talked about, which I think is very, very important. Because I agree with Yama that one size fits all approach doesn't work. But at the same time, as you grow and the body of number of people that you can't have, for example, if you're leading 50 people, you can't have 150 different individualized. So that would be the rebuttal I would have on that. So,
Yeah.
But having said that, I think it's very critical.
Very critical.
It comes down to empathy.
True. And what Kim was saying is really important in terms of size of team. And I'd love everyone to walk away with something, a piece of data that's really important. We need to focus 2/3 on creating a healthy corporate culture and 1/3 on financial success. And often when we're meeting with leaders, they say, you know, Kath, can you take me from 0 to $1 billion like you did that other company? And their motivation is not the right motivation. The motivation has to be to solve a problem. So I define awakening organizations as those organizations that are solving a problem, a challenge for the world, and in so doing, not causing a deliberate problem for either the planet or other people. And that organizations really do need to measure their corporate culture.
Yeah.
And by not having the deliberate measurements of corporate culture though, Kim, what happens is it becomes a free-for-all.
Yeah.
And often, you know.
Well, your leadership stuff is free for all too, right? So,
Yes,
so I agree, you need to have that measure.
yeah.
So. Are we moving on to number 2?
Do you want to do number 2?
Well, I think you do number 2,
Oh.
but before we do, I'm just, you know, Mark Coleman, I'll invite you if you don't mind to maybe provide a rebuttal. You wrote a really interesting thing in the chat, said, yep, a classic, and you're talking about Dale Carnegie's book. Limited in perspective, however, we've grown a lot since then. You know, I read that book probably 10 times. The last time I read it was probably 2 years ago. So I'd be interested in your perspective about who's because in my view, at least, Mark, and I'm happy to hear your views, anybody's views, but I think there's just some basic human decency considerations and leadership considerations that we don't grow up, like respect and listen. You know, even though humanity has grown a lot, you know, and we're more sensitive to people in general, you know, I think it still comes down to respect and listen. So Mark, when you have some time, if you feel inclined, I'd be happy to hear you.
Mark,
All right.
Mark, he's gonna do it right now.
Oh, this is right now. All
Yeah,
right.
that's
All
I
right.
just
Love
went
it,
off
Mark.
mute. I'm here.
All right. Let's rock and roll. What do you
Thanks for
got?
this program, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's
What do
very
you got,
interesting.
Mark?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Kim, is that there's a lot of wisdom. It's kind of really basic human communication and how we deal with people. And it's just sort of being an upstanding, respectable, respected person is kind of the takeaway I get from Dale Carnegie. And there's a whole lot of, you know, deeper understandings that go on. I mean, I can't imagine Dale Carnegie talking about cultural awareness and competency and understanding different, you know, cultures across. I think he was coming from, you know, in that era, a pretty, you know, white male dominant culture that I think we've
Good point on
have
that.
a lot of awareness about now.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I appreciate that, Mark. And that's a good point. That's a really good point. But you know, when I read that book, every time I read it, Mark and Catherine and people online, you know, I think, my God, I'm smarter for reading it, but I'm kind of foolish for not having thought of some of that stuff on my own.
Right.
But that's the whole idea of learning, right? Because some of that stuff, as Mark said, is so basic.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right.
Well,
Let's
and
move on.
it's putting it to use. Now, Ray Lynn's been really vocal on the chat. I love it. Ray Lynn, I'd love to hear your perspective if you're open to sharing it around cultural competence.
Okay.
Here I
Yes,
am.
check-
Hello, everyone. Certainly, I think that the more we're able to bring alternate perspectives into the workplace and develop that deep sense of respectful understanding, you know, that way of belonging in our organizations, we actually develop our cultural competency. And so that allows me to do, I just posted, you know, we need to always check our privilege, our power, and our perspective taking. And when we are, you know, committed to doing that in our organizations, I think that's when we can really start to shine.
Yes.
I probably want to debate you on the privilege stuff and the power stuff, but let's move on. And interesting perspective. Thank you, Renee. All right, number 2.
I just want to say, I love what you said about belonging. I think that our organizations really are communities, and how the research says that there's so many people who are disengaged at work. And really, I think we're all invited into creating more of a sense of belonging and community, and a sense of place also for anyone who walks into our organization. So I really honor what you just said there, and thank you for saying it.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
number 2.
Number 2, what do you got?
Number 2, is intellectual stimulation and values. And what I also put is break the rules. Because what I've just done is I have listed 3 things. Really, we need to intellectually stimulate, and that is, Kim, what you were talking about. Ask questions, get people involved, get engaged. And yet I think we need an anchor to what are our values. And we have to be willing to break the rules.
Because I'm not sure I follow it.
For sure, you can read it again.
Okay.
You love it, it's totally up your alley.
Intellectual stimulation. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm with you now.
Okay,
Okay.
so what do you think of that, Kim?
Well, it certainly fits with, I don't have it on my top 5, but one of my leadership styles, which I'll talk about in a minute, is challenge the status quo, right? When I was an art student, one of the things that just drove me crazy was when I'd ask a question, you know, to my manager or my senior manager or partner about, hey, I don't understand this, what are we doing here? And they'd say, well, that's the way we did it last year. That just drove me crazy, right? Because certainly as a young accountant, I just wanted to understand, right? So that I could learn. And I think anybody that's intellectually stimulated wants to learn, right? And you don't want to do what was done last year. And if there's a better way to make the mousetrap, you want to do it. And leaders, good leaders, want to do that, right?
Yes.
So I think you totally relate to that. I think that's bang on.
And what's interesting in healthy teams that we work with, we actually have somebody assigned as devil's advocate to question, so that there's not this kind of just assumption to go with the flow of the team.
Yeah.
You know, so we need to be able to challenge each other and challenge our thinking in a kind way to create better solutions.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so you're number 2.
What's my number 2? And I learned this the hard way, okay? Which is interesting, but transparency and authenticity is critical. And I wrote a piece on that as well, back in August of this year on my website. I think leaders need to be transparent, not too transparent. Like obviously you can't give up confidential information, but the people that follow them and look up to them shouldn't be guessing as to what they're doing and where they're taking them. In other words, the vision needs to be very transparent. What they stand for needs to be transparent. You know, for example, the people I lead and have led over the years, they know bloody well that I don't tolerate a lot of nonsense when it comes to, you know, from the government on fiscal policy.
Yes.
Especially this current government, which I'm not gonna get into politics, I promise, but you know, there's a lot of stuff on that I just don't tolerate. And I'll never lead the organization down, you know, flavor of the day kind of stuff. And so I think it's really important to be authentic and transparent for the benefit of your leadership, the benefit of your team overall.
And so can you clarify for me what would be something that you draw a hard line?
Well, there's quite a bit. I won't mention it today, but certain things that have happened. Let me think. I'll think of something.
Okay.
And but that's a good question.
Okay.
What's your number 2? I'll think and then I'll come back.
Well, I've shared my
sorry.
I've shared my number 2. Before we go on to number 1 though, one of the big things we do at Awakened Company is we weave in mindfulness breaks, because we're actually more creative, more productive if we take a pause. So I'm going to invite everybody, Kim,
This is
you
gonna get
included.
weird.
I'm weird. We've got to break the rules. We've got to go off of our automaticity. I'm done with the automatic mode of business of produce. That's not what it's about.
You're getting weird.
I'm getting weird and love me for it. Like Sherry. Yeah. So I invite everyone to and this is a practice you can use with your teams and with yourself at any time. So I invite you to put both feet on the floor. And I invite you to just relax your shoulders.
This is getting weird.
It's getting weird. And but the thing is, as leaders, if we're not going to get weird and break automatic, how are we really leading? So just relax your shoulders. Bring sensation to your right arm. Sensation to your right leg. Sensation to your left leg. Sensation to your left arm. Sensation to the top of your head. Now bring sensation right down to the bottom of your feet. And now we have just taken a moment to have a presence pause.
And I have an answer for you. What's a line that will cross?
I knew that was gonna happen. See, I did that because I'm like, okay, this is gonna help Kim. What is it? What is the line you will cross?
And I know some people on the line here probably won't agree with me, and that's fine, but I'm pretty well thought out on this. But a line that I won't cross is employing diversity, equity, inclusion principles in a firm just for the sake of diversity, equity, inclusion. I stand by meritocracy. The best person wins no matter what, in terms of the fit and who we're going to have. Diversity, equity, inclusion, I think, is a dangerous principle, and it will not cross that on here ever. Now, there's lots of leaders that don't agree with me, and that's fine.
So on that note, I'd just like to bring up some research. So I studied as part of a program I was taking at Cornell University, is what are the highest performing teams? And the highest performing teams are actually those that are the most diverse in terms of their thinking, in terms of how do we think and how do we play together. So for me, it's always been important to have a really healthy team, to have a very, very diverse perspective.
I totally agree.
So that to me is where the rubber hits the road, is
Yeah.
like the business research says, the higher performing we are, the more diverse we are in terms of thought, in terms of thinking. And I totally have seen that in the teams that I've worked with, the teams that I've built. And so, yeah.
You won't get any disagreement with me
Yeah.
on that. All right, moving
Okay.
on to number one.
Number one, do you want to go first for this one, Kim?
All right, number one is what I've learned is to be intentional about your leadership style, your leadership leverage and legacy, your leadership brand, and your leadership culture. So I'll give you a little taste of what my style is, and I have it right up here. So my leadership style is transparent honesty in everything I do, never settle, do it right. Passionate about challenging the status quo, which we talked about. Empathetic empowerment for sustainable growth and excellent profits. My leverage and legacy, which is number two. Develop critical thinkers by inspiring examples. Strategic philanthropy, both for community and the profession, is an ingrained culture, and intentionally smarter. My brand is intellectual rebel, focused on continuous improvement. Thought leadership for teammates and peers. Passionate preacher for positive change and results. My leadership culture, like what do I want to have as a culture under my leadership? Always mindful of my humble roots to assist with empathetic leadership examples. And I want aggressive knowledge seekers. I'm an aggressive knowledge seeker, eager to learn. Do what I say, show up on time, say please and thank you, goal respect, right?
Yes.
And then always do the right thing. Be the first to admit mistakes and assume responsibility, and quiet philanthropic examples. So in other words, be intentional. For me to even come up with that took me 4 full days of various drafts, and it was 4 8-hour days of being intentional about what do I want from my leadership style, leveraging legacy, brand, and culture. It was tough, and I've had this in front of me for the last 14 years as I continue to build out my leadership style, brand, and culture, legacy, and brand. So there you go. That's lesson number one.
Amazing. Not surprisingly, it's quite aligned with my number one. And I want to ask everybody on the Zoom call right now, do you have a personal intention? And if so, I would invite you to put it in the chat and we can just hold it for you. Do you have a personal intention?
A personal or a leadership intention?
Either one.
Okay.
Leadership or personal? And if you do, please put it in the chat.
So you're
Okay.
You're killing me here. What's number one?
Number one is be present with intention. And one of the things that I would love, okay, we have some to show up authentically and encourage others to do the same, make a positive impact in the world.
There you go.
The majority of leaders do not have a personal intention. And either we have a personal intention, we either lead with intention or we will be led. So I would invite everybody as a takeaway to know, to create, know, and live by your personal aim. So Kim, I would just give full kudos to you for living, creating, and building your personal aim. Like that is so, so, so important. And if there's one takeaway, if people could please have a personal intention and be present, because presence, when we're present, all of the rest of the leadership attributes that we've discussed will happen.
So you and I both study leadership a lot.
Yes.
Now you study it more at I think at an academic level than I do.
Mm.
So in the studies that you've come across, have you ever come across a study that talks about this issue? Like how many, you mentioned that most leaders don't have intention. Do you have research to back that up? I'm curious.
Well,
Because my anecdotal experience
Yes.
is the same. Like before I wrote this down and I have it all framed in my office now. I didn't have an intention.
and then what are we at the whims of? We're at the whims of our external environment.
Completely.
So back to the whole kind of be grounded in values, unless we know our intention, we will be led. It's like having a corporate vision. Unless we have that vision,
Yeah, then you're kind of like a fish with no tail.
then, and you're rudderless.
Yeah.
Rudderless, so,
Fish with no tail.
yeah, a fish with no tail. So that's the invitation. So those are some real takeaways for you. And we would love to hear now,
I've got a bonus.
a bonus one.
Do you have a bonus?
I know, I did break the rules and I added 3 to break the rules.
Oh, I got a bonus one.
What's a bonus one?
So my bonus leadership lesson that I've learned over the years is to have a morning routine. Exercise, eat healthy all of the time. I hate this idea of cheat meals, for example.
Right,
Because if you have a morning routine, you're prepared, you're healthy, and you're ready for those that you serve. If you're not healthy, both up here
yes,
and physically,
yes,
I mean, look at me, I'm a physical specimen. Kidding, of course, I'm kidding, but then you're not worth it to anybody that you lead. And
Yes.
most importantly, your family, if you have family members, right?
yes,
And so there's a lot of studies done on this, about leaders that have a routine,
yes,
successful.
yes.
Do you have a morning routine?
I do. My morning routine is to meditate and to do my practice every morning.
What time?
It's not a set time, it's right as soon as I wake up. So if I have to be up and out for 7, it's 5:30. If it's a weekend, it's whenever I get up. It's not a set time, but it is, yeah, it's definitely. Now, I'm curious what everyone else, is there any leadership attributes that you think Kim and I maybe have missed that you would like to add to this
You don't want to know what
conversation?
my morning routine is?
Well, you told, well, what's your morning routine? I know your morning routine. I don't live with Kim, but I know a lot about it. So Kim, Moody, what's your
Okay,
morning
so
routine?
while they talk there, or
Yeah.
sorry, they're gonna type and answer your question about what have we missed?
Yeah,
What are some things that we missed? Because I'd like to know.
yeah,
These are just the top 5 I'd look at, plus a bonus.
yeah, we both, so what's your morning routine?
You really wanna know?
I wanna know.
Okay, so I get up at 4:30 in the morning. And I go to my workout in Orange Theory for 5:15.
And it was his 700th workout today? Is that right?
Yep, so
700, impressive.
so I do Orange Theory, which is a tough workout. And then I come back, of course, get cleaned up. I do a meditation. And then I go to work, but sorry, I missed one. So I do a meditation and then I write down the 5 things that I'm grateful for the day before.
Oh, that one I didn't know.
Yeah, and I also do that every Sunday as well, for the week. So that is my morning routine. So take care of my body, take care of my mind, and then practice some gratitude.
That's taking care of your heart,
Right.
body, mind, and heart.
And
There
then,
we go.
and then 3 things that I gotta do so I write down things I'm grateful for, 5,
Mm,
and then 3 things that I have to get done in the day.
I'm curious, do you handwrite them or do you put them in? your
Handwrite
phone?
them.
Yes.
I use this remarkable here.
Yeah.
And I write it on there, so.
I actually, for a while, was not doing stuff on my computer like this, and it wasn't nearly as effective as when I wrote it. Okay, so any other things to add? Doesn't,
So nobody
But
thinks
it-
that we missed anything?
no, yeah, so let's now open it up for questions.
Did we miss it?
And if not, we're going to you to ask you questions. So does anyone have any questions for Kim and I? Would love to hear your questions. You can write them in the chat or come off mute.
Or I guess we're done, maybe. Hey,
No, I have questions for you, Kim.
you have questions for me?
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yes, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, you mentioned imposter syndrome. And,
Yeah.
and I have thoughts about it, but I've struggled with the idea on what imposter syndrome really is. And I wonder if you could share your thoughts about how it plays out.
You want me to tell you what I think it is?
You go ahead and then I'll respond.
So for
Great
me,
question, Mark.
I don't experience it as much as I used to, Mark, but back in the day, until I became really intentional about my leadership style and legacy and brand, the imposter syndrome kind of went away because I was very focused. But prior to that, it was, Jesus, am I really a good leader? I mean, am I qualified to actually even do this? Like, what makes me worthy, and why do people even want to follow me? It was kind of those feelings of insecurity for me. That's what imposter syndrome meant for me, at least anyhow.
Yeah.
So what
Kim, I just want to say thank you for that vulnerability.
transparency and authenticity.
Yeah, it's really, really important. Because in my working with so many leaders, I don't think there's been one leader that hasn't experienced imposter syndrome.
Is that the definition of?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
And so the question is like, let's get real with this. Like, let's get real. We are all kind of, in many ways, broken. So how do we acknowledge that? Like, for myself, I often feel like an imposter. Like, what am I doing writing about this? Who am I to be talking about this? And it's a daily struggle to be present with my intention to get over that.
Yeah.
I often think like I am not, and then when you look at, you know, if I can't do something, then around leadership, around coaching, around helping with corporate culture, then who can?
Yeah.
Like and how to acknowledge that, and not in the sense of being boastful, but in the sense of like humility, and in the sense of just kind of honoring who and what I am and what I've done. When society has told me in many ways, I can't.
Can I just add to that?
Of course.
So, you know, the way I used to deal with the imposter syndrome when I had it, at least my definition of imposter syndrome, so really good question, Mark, was, you know, I used to be very judgmental. And some people still think I am, but I'm not. Like, at least in my view, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm very outspoken.
Yes.
All you have to do is go to my LinkedIn account. You'll see I'm very outspoken.
Yeah.
I call balls and strikes.
Yeah.
But what really helped me get over that was the intention. And today, instead of being judgmental, I ask myself, okay, why is the person saying that? I might not agree with, you know, some things that are being said, but what's the story that this person is experiencing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that saved me recently. This person that I was dealing with was acting so irrational, and I was about to fire them as a client because it was very abusive. And then I just asked myself, what's the story? What's going on here? And then as soon as I asked that question to myself, then that delivered a response that was, okay, Ms. X, maybe let's dial this back a little bit. Can you tell me why you're saying this? You know, it's the
Yes.
open-ended questions like that, right?
Yes.
So I know this is digressing a bit from imposter syndrome, but I think it's an example of when you're not feeling adequate, you can go to judgment very quickly
Yes.
instead of applying intentional leadership, which is an example of asking the story. And so anyway, that's where I was going.
Yes. And that power of the pause that you implemented, just in terms of the story, is super, super important. And it's often when I had for number 5, it's listen to our stories and listen to other stories, and they're just stories.
Yeah.
And often we're making up stories, and often we're taking on you know, social norms that may or may not be true. So for me, I've been really unearthing, you know, what is true and what's a socially conditioned response. And really examining that at a very deep level so that I can be of more service to our clients and the companies that we serve. And also, like, the whole imposter syndrome, just from my perspective, like, I dance in so many different realms. Like, for example, we do corporate culture consulting, we do executive coaching. I'm writing a book on creativity. I'm writing a poetry book that will be published. I'm also a tennis player and a windsurfer, and I'm a mom, and I'm a wife, and I'm a business partner. And we don't have many examples of that in our society. And I think it's time for people like us to kind of come out and say, you know what, it doesn't have to be done in the typical linear form. That we are actually being invited to work from a different place and to behave from a different place.
I agree. Now, we got about 5 minutes left. Should we ask for more questions and then wrap it up, or what? What do you think?
Yeah, any other?
Sorry, was it 5? Is it only an hour? I can't remember. I think it is, right? Sure.
Yeah, it's an hour.
Okay,
We've got
yeah.
4 minutes. Any other questions that we can be of service or helpful to you? We're here for you.
Everyone is just figuring out as they go. Always help me when I'm feeling that. Yeah.
It's very, very true. And it helps to have a posse of people that you're doing it with.
Yeah. One thing I'll say, just reinforce, because it looks like we don't have any other brave souls here. Number one, thank you to everybody for showing up. Thank you, Catherine, for the great conversation. But I'll go back to what I said earlier, and you've already plugged it a little bit. You know, peer-to-peer learning is so important. There's no shortage. If you're to Google how to be a great leader, there's some really good articles.
Yes.
There's some really shitty articles. And I find there's more shitty than good. And I find just learning from peers is so important.
Yeah.
You know, that's where I think you and I, over the last 20 plus years, has been great. You've told me, you know, you punched me in the face more than once, which is great. I love it because I learned, but I'm open to that, right?
Totally open. Yeah.
So, anyhow, I'm a peer-to-peer chair of a learning group called the KCEO Forums. If anybody online is interested in learning more, reach out to me and be happy to let you know more. But to me, the most impactful learning has been the peer-to-peer learning in order to be a better leader, better entrepreneur, a better person. So,
what is so helpful about it is, for me, I'll speak from my experience, is learning from people who've been in the same seat.
absolutely.
And also for me, ultimately, strategy is action. It's how we actually are in our worlds and what are the small things we do every day that can help catalyze a better society through our organizations. I see business as a force for good. It is the only way we're going to solve the problems that we're facing. So why not get together with a great group of people and learn from each other?
No question.
And I see Dave's been on our call. So Dave, thanks for being here. He's part of McKay as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, so any other points or questions? All right.
Thanks everybody. Really appreciate the engagement and showing up. All
Thanks,
right.
guys. It was awesome.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming, Kim. Hey, Dave. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye for now.
Okay, how do we get on it?